I mean, really, how much drama can the second last race of the season really offer? Like, I mean, you could skip this one, right? I mean, the Drivers' Championship's already wrapped up. I guess there's a fun little team championship that they got to work out. I'm sure, Tim, that the FIA stewards are feeling more relaxed. I'm sure that they're super chill. They're like, whatever, you guys just go have fun. I'm sure that all the teams figure out, they probably know who they're picking for their drivers next year, right, Tim? Right?
Yeah.
Or is everything on fire?
Sure.
Everything's on fire.
It's been interesting, Adam. It's been an interesting weekend. No question about it. Just to start, like with, Max's penalty. Like Max's penalty. Well, let's just Max's
go
penalty.
there. Like, let's go, Tim. Take it.
The penalty that he got in qualifying that demoted him one place. He lost, one spot on the grid.
Mm-hmm.
That was on George's, second prep lap. And I think George was told on the radio that Max was ahead going slow. And so was Alonso, because I think Alonso was in front of Verstappen as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was strange. And then obviously the fallout from that, which we'll get into in a bit. And then I guess the big thing for me, Adam, was the debris on the track, like the mirror.
Yes, a little bit of a important detail.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like I got a note from the FIA on that, and they had said, what did they say? They had said it's normal practice for the safety car not to be deployed if there is a small amount of debris and off the racing line. But you could argue that was a fairly sizable piece of debris that, you could argue that it's on the racing line. It is a portion of the track that the drivers do use to, outbrake each other into the passing zone into turn one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, how many laps it kind of took before, a safety car was thrown. Bottas had to run over it. And then there was the safety lights on the safety car that were not going off. And I think the drivers were having trouble with that. And that actually was a malfunction of the safety car. And I think for the third deployment of the safety car, they actually had to swap that out. So yeah, it was malfunctioned. It was identified and fixed. The safety car was then swapped in time for its third deployment.
Wow. Okay.
So they had fixed it, but for the safety sakes, they had swapped the cars. And it was just a couple, strange things. And some of the penalties, too, were super harsh. What do you think about Lando Norris's?
Well, so you know what? Don't take my word for it. Take Toto Wolff's. And he said that was really like a strong penalty. And Lando goes from having what looks to be a great race to almost out of the points, Tim. And this is the part that is, I know F1 wants a race right to the end between the two teams. I get that. I understand that. That felt like a lot. I could see getting a penalty. I can't see 10 seconds is really, really strong. And I wonder, were it Max Verstappen, were it Lewis Hamilton, what the reaction would have been. Do you know what I mean? Just seems like, okay, well, people just accepted it. Max would be out there going, that was stupid, right? It's ridiculous that this has happened. And I feel targeted. And, you're able to manipulate through the media some of that stuff. And you can get, because people are human beings, you can get people to back off. It happens in every sport. I don't understand why McLaren's not out there banging pots and pans going, we kind of got screwed here. Tim, is that anything more than a 5-second penalty to you if it's a penalty?
Well, it was even like a 10-second stop and go penalty. It was a wee bit harsh, Adam. I don't necessarily think it should have been that harsh.
Mm-hmm.
But it was in the rule book, right? That actually is in the rule book. So, fair game. That penalty was issued properly, and good on Max Verstappen for noticing it right?
Yeah,
Like
no
having
kidding.
the wherewithal to actually think about, if Norris, had lifted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like good on Verstappen. I mean, that's incredible wherewithal. I just felt that was a little bit harsh. I mean, 5-second time penalty could have been enough, I think.
Mhm.
But again, if it's in the rule book, man, sure, you got to apply it. That's fair game.
Right.
I just felt that like there were a lot of fairly heavy penalties like handed out this weekend.
Mhm.
And I know it's like Rui Marquez's second race as race director. And I thought what he did in Las Vegas was really good. I thought he'd done well there. And then the stewardship of the penalties, race control, some of their decisions, it was just it was all a little bit, it was a lot, I just thought.
Yeah.
But I mean, that being said, I think the safety car should have came out a little bit earlier for that piece of debris. Now we're not sure whether or not the tire failures had anything to do with it. Pirelli still needs to collect the tires that failed on Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton's car, and they need to investigate that. And they need to investigate whether or not it was just tire worn out that caused the punctures, or if it was from debris on the track. That's still an unknown at this moment, but should have some more clarity on that in the next week or so. Adam, other than that, I mean, I liked the race. I mean, it was exciting off the start. I mean, I thought Lance Stroll's penalty was harsh. Like
it was crazy. It was like they were just really tight this weekend, right?
There was room for Albon there to also move out of the way a bit. I mean, not move out of the way, but he had some racing room on the left-hand side. So he could have gave himself a little bit more room. And Lance did try to give him as much room as he could, but it's the opening lap. They're battling for a spot. I mean, you know what I mean? So anyways, it was a good race. Had an exciting start, had a little bit of a lull, and then fairly exciting finish. I mean, which, Charles Leclerc finishing, second. He's now 8 points back of Lando Norris for second in the Drivers' Championship.
Pretty great.
I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting. Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that people forget, once the Drivers' Championship's wrapped up, it still kind of matters where the other drivers finish too.
Oh, 100%. And then also, like you had said off the top, Constructors Championship. I mean, I thought Ferrari was down and out, man. I thought they were finished. I thought they were done.
Yep.
And then it changed within a lap.
And it's going to come back down to the final race here.
Yes, final race, 21 points. Here we go.
Oh, it's going to be good. Now, the conversation between Max and George has been interesting because obviously the most inflammatory conversation or press clip is Max in the press conference afterwards saying, that George wasn't, that he's not the guy he portrays himself to be, that he couldn't believe that another driver would try to screw him like this. And I texted you yesterday and said, listen, man, here's how I feel. He's heated, but every driver would screw their own grandmother if it got 2 extra, 3 extra points. Over, important word there. Yes. That's how these guys operate. Like Max coming in here and acting like, oh man, I would never, I can't believe he would do that. I mean, Max, come on, the rule book front to back and back to front for a reason. It's so you can screw other guys, right? It's so you can go, hey, you guys might not remember this, but I do. You should look up chapter 6.3.6. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of an important detail for Max.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Adam. And you know what? All these drivers are going to do whatever they can to get an advantage on each other. Yes. Especially on the racetrack. I mean, that's fair game out on the track. So Max, asking the team to check to see if Lando lifted. That also goes back to Brazil when everybody peeled away on that formation lap when they shouldn't have, because there was was a yellow flag at that point, or was it red flag at that moment? I think it was red flag at that moment. But everyone left, and Max again, hey, we're not supposed to leave. And then there's the point at which you enter the steward's office and you both have to speak with the stewards. And the way Max had put it is like George did everything he could to throw Verstappen under the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Max should be upset. I mean, he has every right to be upset about that, for sure. And George, I think, has every right to do whatever it was he did. Now, I'm not in the steward's office, so I have no idea. But at the end of the day, we have to understand what happens within the steward's office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what lengths can you go to really put pressure on the stewards to make a decision in your favor, right? How does that work? I mean, none of us have actually ever really have been in the steward's office.
There's no cameras.
So we don't really know, right? But Verstappen feels so strongly about it. I mean, then there must have been something in there that he did not like, because he is pretty vocal about things like that, right?
Well, and George and Max are pretty friendly off track from everything we've heard. But I mean, it's
more. I mean, he pulled him aside, I think, during the driver's parade and gave him a piece of his mind. So,
wow.
There's that. So
wow.
He wasn't happy. He was not happy about that.
And that's what this sport is, right? That's kind of the fun of it, is that the drivers are going to do that, and they are going to get mad at each other, and it's entertaining, Tim. That's the whole point.
Well, I mean, it's entertaining, like, for us, but I mean, not for them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not entertaining at all. But again, like, you need to have a conversation with somebody, and like, these drivers aren't necessarily always open to seeing each other. And so when do they get to see each other? They get to see each other at the driver's parade. They get to see each other at the driver's briefing. That usually happens on a Friday. And so the driver's parade doesn't happen until a Sunday, and something has already happened on a Saturday. So if you need to have a conversation with somebody, driver's parade's when you do it.
The pickleball games are going to get way more intense. That's all I got to say. Because you got, Albon's probably in there like, well, nobody else likes each other here. George, Lando, and Alex and Max all play together. And good boy. Some dust ups.
But also it's like, it's foreshadowing too for us. I mean, what happens next season?
Well, and George said last week, isn't it funny, Tim? George said last week, it's about time somebody gave Max a good test. And I thought that's a little bit of a shot at Lando, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of shot at McLaren, a little bit of a shot, hey, Max, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of this is Max getting going back off, and also knowing that Mercedes are catching up. And it's just that much harder. Max is the best driver on the grid. There's no question about that. But Mercedes could have one of the fastest cars next year. And in 2026, if the rumors are to be believed, they have the best engine.
Yeah. And that makes it exciting for us, our standpoint, two drivers who don't like each other anymore, which there's been a falling out by the looks of it. I mean, that's just...
How long will it last?
Gravy, Adam. It's gravy.
Oh, it's great. Love a little bit of love, some friendship, love some anger. It's a little bit of good, a little bit of both. And I think that Max caring that much is he's already won. He already won. But him caring that much goes to show why he's in the position he's in. Because it's not about you already won. It's about, I don't care, I'm going to win it anyway. And he did.
Yeah, he was fantastic. I honestly didn't think Adam Red Bull was going to be that good this weekend. And
one of them wasn't.
Yeah, one of them really wasn't. And Max was, again, I think, flattering the equipment that they have. Like, just so good when he needs to be. They started off that weekend, again, poorly. Like, same thing with Abu Dhabi. Right, same exact circumstances where it was a bit of a struggle. Like, well, Las Vegas was a big struggle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Qatar, not as much so, but still there was a struggle. And then it just took Max again finding the right balance, and extracting whatever performance was in the Red Bull at the time. And that's just the way it is. I mean, even Lando Norris said that he felt he threw away a victory. He felt that they had the fastest car this weekend. And I actually agree with him. Like, the McLaren in clean air was, I would say, the faster car. It was. Wow.
And it's just Max being Max, right?
Totally.
Now, when it comes to this race, team principal Christian Horner called George Russell, quote, hysterical. He said, no, look, I think the penalty was more based on the hysterics from George, who has been quite hysterical this weekend. But, that's unfortunately, I think that was a bit of gamesmanship going on. Mm-hmm. Now, you talk about hate. Maybe George and Max have a big rivalry next year. Mm-hmm. Are you ready for a Toto Christian Battle Royale Volume 2?
Give it to me.
Yeah? Listen, I know Zach and Christian have sort of traded barbs, but Toto and Christian, it's just classic, right?
It's pretty entertaining.
Yeah. There's just something about the two of them that they're like, oh, I really they like each other, but they also love to poke each other.
Yeah. And I think that rivalry being sort of renewed for next season is exciting, right? Like this, George and Max going back and forth. At the end of the day, Max was the one who won, right? George didn't. Max was the one who came out on top, even though he got a penalty, lost pole position. He still came out on top. And heading into turn 1 in Qatar, Adam, at the start of this race, I was glued to my seat because I just knew that Max was just so fired up that he was going to send it in, and whatever happened was going to happen. And it was, how late is George going to break? I'm going later.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. And it was a great pass. It turned into an incredible move. And for George, poor pit stop, right? That sucks. Bad pit stop. Maybe the tire choices towards the end, not ideal, but still, George was extremely strong. And that's got me really excited for next year, Adam. It just does. You can see it. You can see Mercedes is starting to figure out what's wrong with their car. And you can see the Red Bull will be back. They will. They may not be as strong as they were in 2023, but they're going to be back. And we're going to have something there, which is going to be awesome. And then you're going to sprinkle in Norris as well, and Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc. It's going to be great.
Wow. Great. I love it. Now, one of the things that I think is obviously bubbling under the surface is that, there's more driver news. And Franco Colapinto apparently is not necessarily on Red Bull's radar anymore, just because they believe that Isaac Hadjar is ready for VCARB. He's had a really great season in F2. We're going to have 4 or 5 rookies on the grid next year, which is going to be kind of crazy because we didn't get any rookies last year. And it'll be interesting to see, Tim, who benefits from that. Is it the rookies who come in and they're super young and fast and they don't realize that they're great and they've got nothing to worry about? Or is it the vets who know the cars and know the tracks and can use that knowledge to their advantage? It's going to be a fascinating one. But with Colapinto out, it's worth mentioning, too, that there were several tweets. Specifically, I'm going to mention Adam Cooper, at Adam Cooper F1, who wrote, and he's a freelance journalist for Formula One. He said, Sunday night was the second time in a couple of months I've stood in the post-race media pen in front of an F1 driver who had conflicted emotions and was trying to tell me that this was his last race for his team, but couldn't officially say it. Now, a lot of people said that's got to be Esteban Ocon. That was announced and talked about on the Sky Sports feed. And I think it was announced probably a day or two before the Alpine was ready to announce that, but he will not be racing the last race of the year. Jack Doohan will take over. But I think this is more Sergio Perez. And I think what Adam Cooper is talking about there, Tim, is he's talking to another Red Bull driver in a matter of months that knows it's his last race. I want to give you some stats, just a couple. Pierre Gasly was dropped from Red Bull when he had 65 points in his last 12 races. Albon was dropped with 69 points in 12 races. Sergio Perez is 34. Okay. Perez has not finished in the top 5 since Miami of this year. That's 18 races ago. And then you have a pit lane start for the sprint race, and you get passed in the pit lane with a speed limiter on.
Yeah.
So this is it, right? For Sergio.
Well, according to Nate Saunders, because he broke this story open this morning, it is like Abu Dhabi will be it for Sergio Perez.
Okay.
Liam Lawson will move in, and Isaac Hajar will go to VCARB. Now, I don't know how the sponsorship implications work with all that. I mean, obviously, Sergio has a lot of backing from Carlos Slim, Telcel, and how much money that brings into Red Bull. And if they're going to be on the car for next year, I highly doubt it. I think that this has to be some sort of a Sergio Perez and the board of Red Bull sort of decision.
Yep.
If I'm reading between the lines correctly, and the things that we've heard from Christian Horner and the things that we've heard from Helmut Marko, which are two in sort of the same.
Okay.
One was in Las Vegas. The other one was at the end of the Qatar Grand Prix. It will be extremely difficult for any driver teaming up with Max Verstappen. And I'm not trying to, take it easy on Sergio Perez. He was not great this year. It was horrible. But I don't think he is a horrible driver.
No, I don't think so either.
I think that he is in a spot going up against one of the all-time greats, Adam, in a car that suits one driver who has a very unique driving style that when he can activate it, he's unbeatable. And so we'll say Liam Lawson for now. Liam Lawson moving into that second seat. I wouldn't want to move into that second seat. I would. Don't get me wrong, I would, but
there'd be some trepidation, right? You'd be worried. Now, Liam Lawson seems young enough and confident enough that it doesn't matter to him.
Yeah, it does. You're right. Actually, it's a great point, Adam. And I think you kind of are going to have to need that.
Yeah.
When you're going to be facing some of the challenges that you're going to be facing. But at the end of the day, man, like Verstappen chews up and spits out teammates. Like when have we seen a driver really hold their own aside from Daniel Ricciardo against Max Verstappen? And even then we can argue that Daniel may not have been able to really hold his own because he left. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts. I think Yuki Tsunoda deserves a shot. I mean, even though he is getting a test and he's done well in the Red Bull simulator comparatively to what Max does. Again, that's a simulator. But again, I really do feel like he deserved a shot. Isaac Hajar, I mean, we'll see, right, Adam? Like, we'll see. I think this is Red Bull essentially really leaning in on their young drivers. I don't think they were particular. I think they lost interest in Colapinto after Las Vegas because of all of the crashes he's had over the last few races, and the pace delta between Colapinto and Albon has dropped off. I mean, Colapinto qualified dead last for this weekend, this race this past weekend. It wasn't pretty. But again, right, like we don't know the full circumstances. Does he have all the new parts on the car? Does Alex have something else on the car? Like, we just don't know that. But that being said, I think they really cooled off on him. And same goes for Alpine. I think they've cooled on him as well. And that's why Alpine has done what they've done. And we can talk about that in a minute. We actually probably should talk about that.
Oh, we definitely will. Definitely will.
But yeah, Adam, I just think any driver you put up against Max Verstappen is going to struggle. I really do. So here's what I think with Checo. I don't think he's done, but it's interesting because they've said, oh, well, ambassador role, because obviously they want to keep Carlos Slim as a part of this. You know, I read an article last week about Daniel Ricciardo potentially joining Cadillac. Not that it's ever been rumored, but why it might make sense, right? And you could see that. He's a big personality.
Checo, with his backing and his popularity in Central America and elsewhere, might make some sense there too. Especially, like, listen, does Checo need to be anything other than Nico Hülkenberg at that first year at the Cadillac team? Right?
Well,
just be a good driver.
Yeah, Adam, you could make. I mean, look, we never really. Don't forget, we got to talk about the Alpine thing. But
we're going to. It's coming.
We could. I know, but I'm going to take us down a dirt path here. So we could sit here and talk about like drivers who are going to be with GM. What happens with Sergio Perez? But what about Valtteri Bottas?
Yeah.
You said it. What about Dan Ricciardo? Does he have interest in coming back? If he does, with who? Who's the younger driver who they could put in there? Is it going to be Colton Herta? Could it be Kyle Kirkwood, who I find quite fascinating?
Why Kyle Kirkwood? Tell me about him.
Fast, American, he's really good.
People are saying Colton Herta for that too.
He gives Colton everything that he can handle and more on an IndyCar weekend. They're teammates. Both drivers would be a great fit, but I would like to throw his name in there as well because I think he's very talented. And then you take a look at, okay, well, if you're going to put a young driver in there, who's going to be the senior driver to kind of help steer the ship? Does Sergio Perez make sense? Or does Valtteri Bottas make sense? If Valtteri goes to Mercedes like we think he's going to be a reserve driver, he's going to have more knowledge there, learning everything from them. He's done his time at Sauber. He's done a good job at that team.
Yep.
I mean, to me, that would make more sense. It just would. Does he have money that's going to come with him? No, he doesn't. But if you're GM, you need to take this seriously, right? You don't.
Oh yeah.
You need to take. You need to have you need to know which drivers you're going to take and which drivers are going to help you get your systems up and running and get the car going in the right direction. Hülkenberg is a great addition for that Sauber Audi seat. He is. And I think Valtteri Bottas would have been a great teammate for them as well. He would have been able to help them accelerate that program at the same time. But I like the fact that they brought Bortoleto in. And I think he is a very talented driver. And I think when you have spot talent like that, you do need to snap it up and hold on to it. So
right.
That GM, those seats at GM are going to be really fascinating to see what happens. And so what does that do for Sergio Perez, right? I mean, yeah, we heard about this, brand ambassador role with Red Bull. Does Carlos Slim stick around for that though, Adam? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Who knows? He might not. He might be like, you know what? I'm done with this F1 stuff. I'm out. See you later. But Sergio has such a strong fan base in Mexico. It's incredible. I've been there. I've seen it. We're talking, they pack that racetrack with Sergio Perez fans who just love the guy. And so, yeah, if I'm Red Bull, I'm trying to hold on to him, right? I'm not trying to just, extinguish this relationship. Yeah, exactly. I don't want to just sack him, right? I would want to hold on to him. Okay. Thoughts.
Well, we'll see. Now, on the Alpines... What
are your thoughts on it here?
Because, I think it's time for him to go. I think whatever it is, we talked a little bit about...
When you say time to go, though, Adam, when you say time to go, how are we talking about time to go here? Are you saying, it's time to say bye-bye?
I think it's a clean break. I think you need a clean break. And I think Sergio needs a break. And I think it's because, listen, Sergio may not be Max Verstappen, but Sergio's a good driver. And a really good driver, in fact. We've seen him be a very good driver in that Red Bull car. I think there's still juice there, and I think I think a Cadillac would make a lot of sense eventually. Obviously, you want to take a reserve driver role for the year that you're not going to be in, because all the seats are decided. Yeah. So hopefully, you can find one of those, maybe even with Red Bull, or ambassadorial or whatever. To me, Red Bull need a new guy in there. They need some fresh blood. I think that this guy's confidence has been destroyed one way or the other. Jos Verstappen was actually strangely for Jos complimentary of Sergio. Said if the cars were equal, I think Sergio would be back up at the front. I don't know fully what that means. I think maybe that's a shot at Christian. But I'm looking at this and probably a shot at Christian just based on their relationship. I look at this and I go, okay, the relationship maybe it's not poisoned, but it's not great. And he doesn't feel good putting on, his Red Bull branded gear at the beginning of every race. I think that matters for a driver. And I think for him to have such a poor start, especially in that sprint race, that's a guy who's not feeling good about himself, maybe depressed and not focused. And when you're feeling that bad, it's hard to be focused. I think he needs a clean break, but I think he should be back in F1. I think he's too good not to. And I know that a lot of people have been basing, their opinions on him on the last few races. I think you got to look last few years. This is a guy that at one point looked like he could challenge Max for the championship title in 2022, right? That wasn't that long ago. And I know things move fast, but I mean, look at poor Franco Colapinto. One day he's like, everybody wants him. Now he's going to be a reserve driver again next year.
It's not like he hasn't lost any of his talent.
No, exactly. He didn't forget how to drive.
No.
Could be car conditions, track conditions, whatever. I think Perez is good. And I think they got to, Red Bull would be smart to keep him as a reserve driver. What if it doesn't work out with Liam Lawson? What if he washes out like Gasly, like Albon? And I think too, the Red Bull program needs to have a strong look at why these guys wash out. Because, Christian didn't love Pierre Gasly and didn't really want to promote him, right? We know that. He only promoted him because that was the next guy up after Ricciardo. Fine. Albon came in and did a good job. And if they'd been patient with Albon, he would have been fine. Both Gasly and Albon are leading other teams right now. And no, are they front-running teams? No, they're not. But that doesn't mean that they're not good drivers. Gasly's now pulled the team. Him and Ocon have pulled that team, that Alpine team that had a terrible start to this year, into sixth place. Yep. He's regularly finishing in the points. Alex Albon is the only reason that Williams fans have had much to hope for the last 3 years. I think that Red Bull has cut a lot of talent loose early, and you deplete this young driver program when you do that. And so, and like this goes back to what I said about Helmut Marko earlier, which is, hey man, I get that you have opinion and you're entitled to it, but maybe don't destroy your driver's confidence in the press every week.
Yeah, I think Yuki Tsunoda is a good example of it too, Adam. Like, this is a driver who came in, had a lot to learn. Let's be honest,
for sure.
In his first year, second year was better, third year his best. And so, like, this is a driver who, like, every year that he's been in Formula One has gotten better, not worse. Like, he's gotten better and stronger. And so this is a perfect example of what I always say with Formula One, and especially recently. You need to give the drivers time, and it's not one and you're done. You need to give them like a couple good solid years to actually evaluate what you've got, because drivers do have potential to always elevate their game and get better and better and better. Max Verstappen right now obviously is the bar, but he still continues to get better year on year on year. It's the same thing like for a Yuki Tsunoda, maybe not the same level of generational talent like Max is, but still a driver who's extremely talented and is just going to get better. The more he hangs around, the more he absorbs the information, the more he races, the more he learns. Like, that's what Formula One is now. You need to give drivers time. People are gonna be in the comments, Adam, all up in me and at me. Let me tell you something. I know what it takes, okay? And I understand how long it takes. And I get how long it takes to learn, okay? And that's what these guys are doing. And that's what it takes, all right? You go from racing in Formula 2 where you're dealing with 7 people to Formula One where you're dealing with 700.
That's a lot. And there's going to be a lot of teams with itchy feet next year, Tim. Like guys like Magnussen, Checo, they should hang around because there's going to be some rookies. If you have 5 on the some of them are going to wash out.
I mean, look at Kevin Magnussen. Once they understood the braking issues for him and how to overcome
he's been great.
Those issues, he's been fantastic.
He didn't forget how to drive.
No.
Didn't forget how to drive.
No.
Okay. I want to talk about Alpine a little bit because Esteban Ocon has raced his last race for them, and he's been with them since 2001. 2001. Oh, my goodness. 2021. Was a teammate of Ricciardo's for a bit, Gasly's teammate, Fernando Alonso's teammate. Oscar Piastri's teammates, but there's been some good drivers through that Alpine program. And now it's Esteban's turn to leave and go to Haas next year. He's going to do a test in December, right? Late December on the next Haas car, or the latest Haas car?
Yeah, so the Haas car that's going to race in Abu Dhabi, that'll be the same car that he will test the next week. And that whatever the bells and whistles are going to be on it for the last race, that's what will be on it for the tire test that he'll be doing in Abu Dhabi.
Cool.
This was I'd seen this coming for a while. Like,
so some people called it disrespectful, though, Tim. Why would this happen, and why isn't it?
Go back to Monaco. I mean, obviously we had the falling out there, right?
Yeah.
We can use that as like sort of a jumping off point. Okay. And it just seems like it's a relationship that slowly has deteriorated over, months between driver and team. And sometimes the driver would never come out and say exactly what's wrong with the car, but you kind of got the inkling when talking to him that there is something that he felt was wrong with the car, or maybe he had felt that he wasn't getting enough on the car that his teammate may have been getting. And that's just sort of reading between the lines and my thoughts on it. And I think for Esteban, for him, it was just the right time to say, look, like we are not working well together, and the team acknowledging that, and then going to say, I want to go and do this test with Haas in December, which is a good move, and saying, both negotiating an early exit to allow him to go and do this test with Haas and be integrated with that team earlier or sooner. Mm-hmm. He could very well be integrated with them by the time Abu Dhabi rolls around in a few days' time. Mm-hmm. So that is a possibility. But for him to get some experience with Haas early is a good thing. That's something that you do want. And Haas is on such a positive trajectory right now.
Yeah, they are.
So too is Alpine. Too is Alpine. They've been doing a lot of experimenting for parts that they're going to be bringing to next year's car. And so I think Alpine's going to be strong next season as well. But that being said, I mean, it's smart for a driver to go somewhere early if they can, get their feet wet, learn everybody. That is why I keep trying to, you need to know who you are working with, because there's a lot of people involved, and you need to get that relationship working. So engineers, driver understand each other, and you both know what you need and you want. And that helps with the balance of the car, because it helps you get better setup on things because they understand you and they know how you drive. That being said, I don't see any level of disrespect.
No.
No. I feel that this was a smart move by both parties. Alpine gets an opportunity to early test Jack Doohan and to see what he can and cannot do. Yes, they have him in the simulator, and yes, he's done some testing, but now you're going to have him for a race weekend, so you can get started in on him early as well, which is really, really important when you take a look at next year. It also gives Alpine, I think, a sense of what Jack struggles with and what he is good at, and that they can improve on during the off season.
Do you have a sense of how committed they are to him? Because
I was just getting to that, because I don't see why you would announce this guy, do all of this, put him in the car, and then eject him from the car immediately.
For Colapinto.
Because I think Alpine's also cooled on Colapinto, to be honest with you.
They have.
I don't think they're interested either, because of what's happened with Colapinto over the last few races. And so I think it's a good move by both parties. I really do. I think it's the right thing to do, right?
Mm-hmm. I just looked, Tim. But okay, go. Yeah.
Constructors Championship, man. Like, they're in 6th. They're just holding on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know what Jack Doohan's going to be. I don't. He could be fantastic. He may not. I mean, but
you just don't know.
You just don't know. You at least know with Esteban, you got a guy that can finish on the podium. It's there in front of him, and he smells blood in the water. He's gonna go get it. So that's what you got there, but it's not going to be there. So that could be difficult. that could be them costing themselves, 6 in the constructors potentially.
Totally. I look at the I look at the rumors with Colapinto, and I question how committed they are to Doohan as well. And maybe not for any other reason other than F1 is very much about, are you hot today? If you're hot today, then we want you. But I wonder if a guy like Perez becoming available would be interesting to them. Hey, we'd prefer a little more veteran, whatever. I hope they go with the rookie.
No, you're right. Actually, that's a good point, Adam.
Or if they're, who's going to struggle, Tim? Because somebody will struggle. There will be teams that struggle. There will be drivers that struggle. Like, do you want that veteran present? Do you want a Magnussen? Do you want a Perez? Does anybody want to take a flyer on Ricardo? I do think the rookies are going to surprise and wow, and it'll be great. There's going to be a couple teams that are not happy with the results. There's just too many new rookies and too many teams to. You can't make everybody happy. Is my point.
That's a good point, Adam. And if Sergio is available, and let's say that, I could hardly. I don't see this happening, but if Jack severely struggles, and they want to make a switch. If Sergio is available, is that someone they would look at? That would be a question I would ask them. I really would. I'd be interested to know what they thought about that.
Yeah, I think it is. So the last thing I wanted to kind of hit. Well, you know what? Why don't we get to questions? Because if we go through all this and we don't get to the questions might be like tick tick tick. You guys should be covering this anyway.
Copy that. Let's go to Blue Skies because we got a couple on.
Yeah, go Blue Sky.
Over to Twitter. From Tamara Sutherland. It is obviously too late in the season, but do you think the improvement in form at Sauber following their latest upgrade hints that they will start next year in a better position? Adam, what did you listen? I think the Sauber story this weekend was the best part of the entire weekend. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Zhou Guan Yu getting his points, and
that was awesome. Sorry, Adam. From this question, do you think Sauber, following their latest upgrade, hints that they will start next year in a better position?
I sure hope so. Because it's hard to get worse. And you can see how quickly teams can turn it around. VCarb had the worst car in the grid last year. Now they're not. Would be good. But Tim, I don't know enough about how much money they're putting into the program for next year. I know that Audi is fully committed to 2026 and coming in hot. And I just, if I'm Nico Hülkenberg, I feel like I've got probably the safest job in the sport. Just keep the car on the track, and you're going to make it to 2026 because I don't think they're going to put a lot into it next year. I think there are going to be some teams at the top that are going for it. I think there's going to be some teams at the bottom who are like, what's the point? Mm-hmm. And what am I going to do? Am I going to put $20 million more into my program to move up one spot and be ninth and then get a $10 million payout, right? Like that, or whatever it is, right? They do look at it in those terms. Yeah,
for sure. And I also think that and Tamara makes a good point about the upgrades because they did bring a significant upgrade into Las Vegas, and that offered them about, I want to say from what I've heard, about 15 points of downforce. So it's quite a bit of performance.
Wow.
And then obviously with the front wing the front wing that they had brought to Qatar as well. So that is them taking a look at next year and putting parts on the car to see what could potentially help them improve their performance for next season and testing different options. So I think that has shown itself to work quite nicely at Qatar. We'll see what happens in Abu Dhabi, and we'll see if they bring any more components. I do, however, like the fact that they haven't just completely given up, right?
Yes.
It's been a horrible season for that team with a very difficult car.
Yeah.
And both drivers, I thought, did great all weekend long. And Valtteri, he did have a difficult race, and some points of this race, just wasn't his fault. They could have had 2 Saubers potentially in the points, right? I just think that when we take a look at Sauber as a whole, it was a good story this weekend. I really liked it, and hopefully this performance, they can keep bringing that because next season, they have 2 very interesting drivers who I'd like to see do well. From Pond Hockey Legend, in your opinion, did Red Bull purposely throw their chances at the Constructors Championship by keeping Sergio Perez through the second half of the season? I wonder if the increase in wind tunnel time for next season is more valuable to them than the money they could have raked in. They really believed that Sergio would come around in the second half of the season. That's why when we had so many rumors of Daniel Ricciardo, and good rumors too, that Sergio was going to be replaced for Daniel Ricciardo, they just figured that let's take our chances with Sergio. He's got more experience in this car, and hopefully we can give him everything that he needs to turn his season around. And they have given him everything that he needed to try and help get the confidence back and figure things out. Constructors Championship, that's not something you just throw away. Like the money that you get from the Constructors Championship helps you pay for your past season. So if your spending is 135 million, your payout's 140 million, and 135 million. If you can just take that and throw that against what you spent the year before to build your car, that's what you do. And then your partnership dollars, you pocket that. And obviously it gets distributed to your shareholders and the team and et cetera, et cetera. And there's bonuses and the team gets bonuses. And so, you don't ever want to just throw away Constructors Championships, money in Constructors Championships, because it's worth a heck of a lot, Adam. We'll head over to Twitter. Fiona, someone else mentioned this on my timeline, but why is this the first time we got the stop and go drive through penalties this season when it doesn't feel like the first time we had the not slowing on yellow, speeding through the pit lane penalties, etc. Tim? Look, yeah. Fiona, honestly, like it is in the rule book. That was actually in the rule book. My question is, how come teams haven't investigated or brought it up, or why haven't drivers called out each other during the race more often than not? Let me see what else we got here. Austin Forrest. Why would GM choose Cadillac instead of one of their other car brands? Corvette seems like the natural choice for a racing team. If it's about changing sales demographics for a car brand, I feel like Buick needs more help with that than Cadillac. Take it away, Adam.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that Cadillac, Corvette is one car, right? I mean, they have several versions of a Corvette, but it's a Chevy. The reason they want to get Cadillac in there is Corvette doesn't need help. It's Corvette. Cadillac needs help. And it looks like if this buy is to be believed, and listen, don't put it past GM to screw this up, because GM sometimes they're brilliant, and sometimes you go, I cannot believe that you did that. And if you go back through GM's entire history, they're kind of like that. They're just a behemoth. Cadillac, I think, is going through a rebrand, and we've talked about this, Tim, like Mercedes did about 15 years ago, which it went from the old man car to the young man, sort of high-performing business person / whatever, influencer, artist. They drive Mercedes, they drive G-Wagons, and they drive, 63s, and they drive, whatever you want to put out there. I think Cadillac wants to be seen as a high-performance luxury car. Yeah. And Mercedes did it great. Cadillac can follow in that, but their car lines have to match it, Tim.
Yeah, good point. We have others, Adam, but we kind of already sort of answered them.
Okay.
Our final one we'll take from Leo Montanero. Who do you believe will win the Constructors Championship, and who do you believe will get second in the drivers now that the point gap is 8 points? Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
For me, I'm a McLaren guy through and through. I do think they're going to pull it out. I think that this would not be a conversation we'd be having as seriously if it wasn't for that penalty. I get that it was a penalty. I think it will be McLaren. I hope it's McLaren. And I want Lando to get that second place in the drivers too. I really, really want him to get that. And I think this is a good test for them because they can't take their foot off the gas, as it were. They gotta be sharp right to the end of the year. And that's how they're going to have to be every single race next year if they want to win. Tim?
Look, I think this is going to be a lot closer than a lot of us think. It is only 21 points in the Constructors Championship, and if you take a look at Abu Dhabi, that is a track that's probably going to suit Ferrari. And so who is going to be the team that's going to play a bit of devil's advocate. Who's going to throw a wrench into either McLaren's plans, Ferrari's plans? Is that going to be Mercedes? Is that going to be Red Bull? That for me is going to be interesting. And honestly, what is 40? I think it's 44 points. I think if my math is correct, for a first and second place for constructors points. At the end of the season, plus fastest lap, I think it would be 45, and someone can correct my math on that one. It's 25 plus 18, and then plus 1.
Okay.
So whatever that works out to. So I think it's, what is that? I'm not even going to do the math. I'll let you do the math, Adam.
44.
There you go, 44 points. So, that's not an unsurmountable, that's a lot of points, right?
Yeah.
So if something happens to either Piastri in the race or Lando Norris, and either one of them finishing the points, it's in Ferrari, all they get is 21 points, 22 points. It's over. It's over.
Yeah.
Ferraris, right? And that for me is an incredible story. Haven't won a Constructors Championship since 2008. And I think the team that gets the most pressure put on them is Ferrari. They're kind of like the Toronto Maple Leafs of Formula One. They're the Dallas Cowboys of Formula One. They're the New York Yankees of Formula One. That's what Ferrari is, right? And so I would get a ton of enjoyment to see that. I mean, obviously McLaren haven't won since 1998, I believe it is. So obviously for McLaren, it's been a really, really long time. So two legacy teams going at it in the final race for Constructors Championship. You got to tune in for that. It's incredible.
Absolutely, you do.
For the drivers, here's where I look at, I would like to see Lando Norris win this just because of how well he did this season and how much he pushed Max. He was the only one to really push him.
Yep.
But let's just dig into this a little bit deeper. You've got the two of the biggest storylines at the end of this one are what, Adam? At the end of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, what are the two biggest storylines?
Well, I mean, it's going to be Red Bull. Don't you think?
Lewis Hamilton.
Ferrari.
Race,
okay.
Last race at Mercedes. Ferrari potentially winning Constructors Championship. Charles Leclerc is 8 points back of Lando Norris.
Yeah.
For second place. I sat down and spoke with Charles Leclerc in Las Vegas about this partnership between Lewis Hamilton and himself. We're going to have more on this on SportsCenter later on in the week, so I don't want to ruin all of that because he said some interesting things. I think if you're Charles Leclerc, you want to, take that away from Lando to show Ferrari that you are that number one driver. Because you got Lewis Hamilton coming in next year.
Yeah. Oh boy.
And Lewis doesn't mess around, Adam.
I've heard that, Tim.
You've seen it. We've seen it.
Well, some Rosberg guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Lewis is an incredible competitor, right? So, I think if you're Charles Leclerc, I think it's good for your confidence. I think that for me, that's like what George is on a roll right now, right? Like Russell's been on a roll since I would say, Brazil was good, but Las Vegas was better. Dominant. He was good in Qatar, really good. And I think if you're George Russell, you're like, yeah, I'm feeling good. I want to end this season on a high note so I can carry this confidence into next year and try and win that championship. And I think if you're Charles Leclerc, from my opinion, I would want to be like, yeah, I finished second, on the driver's standings. I got this many wins. Team won the Constructors Championship. I'm feeling good and going in there with that air of confidence. Bringing that into the team for 2025. You know what I mean? That's the way I would think as a driver.
Okay.
What do you think?
Well,
Am I nuts?
No, I think all drivers are nuts, Tim, and you are one. So that's what I want. I want to know the mentality. Nuts is good. That's why we watch the sport. Yeah, man. I was listening to it. I'm going, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, all right, yeah. The George thing, especially bringing that confidence through the winter, I think that'll be huge for him. He's a real confidence guy, right?
Yes.
When he feels good, he races well.
Yeah, I think so too, Adam. I think being around him for as long as I've been around him. I think George having like a good air of confidence and taking that into the winter. You don't really get much time, and you get some time in the simulator, but you're not in a Formula One car for a good couple months.
Yeah.
And, that can kind of like sap the confidence a bit, right? Because you're kind of on pins and needles when you're heading into that next season. You haven't had time to practice in a Formula One car and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not like hockey or football or baseball or basketball. You can go and practice whenever you want. You can shoot the ball whenever you want. You can shoot the puck whenever you want. You can get on the ice whenever you need to. It's not like that in Formula One.
Yeah.
You're out of the car. You are removed from a Formula One car for a good 3 months. So,
yeah.
You want to have as much confidence going into a winter break as you can. And
yeah,
so that's
you do.
why when I take a look at George and Charles, like, yeah, I think it's important for them to have great success at the very final Grand Prix. I really do.
So there's a lot on the line, Tim.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I like that.
I know the driver's title's all wrapped up, Adam, but I mean, this Constructors Championship, there's a lot of meaning behind it. There's a lot of money behind it too. There's a ton of money. There's $140 million if you win.
Absolutely. So, Tim, this weekend's the last one. So we're going to talk Thursday to preview it. And then for the following Monday, it'll be our final recap of the year. Can you believe it?
Yeah, we got to talk about how we're going to do that because, we should be okay, actually. I think I fly back from Abu Dhabi. Well, I fly back from Abu Dhabi Monday at 2 a.m.
Okay.
Abu Dhabi time. So you're Sunday, 6 p.m.
Okay. Well, I've got an event that entire day. So it's going to be...
on the Monday?
No, on the Sunday. On the Sunday,
okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Monday, wide open. Wide open, man. So, yeah, ready to go. I'll be ready.
I'm looking forward to Abu Dhabi, man. It's going to be a quick trip.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's always cool, though. It's such a cool place.
Yeah, I've never been, so I'm really looking forward to. Like, I've driven the car. I've driven on the simulator a lot, like a big F1 simulator. Like, I've driven Abu Dhabi. Like, I've done countless laps on the track, but I've never been to the country. We're really looking forward to seeing what that's all about. Yeah, I'm excited, man. It should be fun. Not looking. The flight's going to be long though.
I love Abu Dhabi. You're going to love it there. I can't believe you haven't been. You're going to love it.
I haven't never flown first class, Adam, ever.
So you're doing that now?
Hold on. I put a bid in to see if I can get business class and get one of those pods that you can like lay down in and sleep instead of like I'm always like I travel a lot when I'm in economy, right? Like,
yeah.
This would be my first time. If it goes through, my fingers are crossed. So we'll find out tomorrow.
Well, I have had it, and I've had it go through, and it's the best.
You've been in one of the pods?
I have been in one of the pods on a flight to Mexico for my honeymoon.
Nice.
It was
what are
awesome.
they like? You got to no. I need the experience.
Dude,
what is it?
They are like the best. They're like this comfortable, like laid back. I watched a documentary. I didn't want to sleep, and I normally sleep on airplanes, but I'm like, I'm not going to sleep. I'm enjoying every minute of this. And I just kind of hung out, and they give you a blanket, and there's like a place for your laptop, and so you could be typing on your laptop and watching a screen, and it's very bouge, very, very bouge. You're gonna love it, Tim. I hope you get it.
I hope I get it,
especially for a 12-hour flight. You're gonna need it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So the thing goes all the way down, like the chair goes like it's like a bed.
Yep, totally. I just didn't use it, but yes.
Oh, I would have at least tried it out.
Oh, I tried it. Sorry, but I didn't. I didn't
right.
use it forever. It's awesome.
Yeah. All right.
It's awesome.
All right. I'll let everybody know if I'm able to get business class.
I love that. All right. Good luck, Tim.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this too.
Go be a high roller in Abu Dhabi and take lots of pictures in your pod, okay?
Copy that.